You've probably heard that the Roman Empire fell because it got soft. Too much luxury? Too many parties? Rome partied itself to death, or so the story goes. But the real story is far stranger. Rome didn't collapse in a single night. It unraveled slowly, over centuries, through a chain of decisions most people have never heard of. Historians still argue about the exact date. Some point to 476 AD, when a general named Odoacer removed the last Western emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustulus. The historian Peter Heather has spent decades studying this question, and his research points somewhere unexpected. Rome didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because the world around it changed faster than Rome could adapt. Here's what that means. For centuries, Rome's borders held because the tribes beyond them were fragmented. Small groups, disorganized, easy to divide, easy to control. But by the 4th century, that was no longer true. Pressure was building far to the east, in the steppes of Central Asia. A nomadic group known as the Huns began pushing westward, and their arrival triggered a chain reaction. The Goths, a people who had lived for generations along the Danube River, suddenly found themselves squeezed between the Huns behind them and the Roman frontier ahead of them. In 376 AD, tens of thousands of Gothic refugees arrived at the border, begging to be let in. Rome said yes, but Roman officials mismanaged the resettlement so badly that the refugees were mistreated and starved. Within 2 years, the Goths rebelled. In 378 AD, at the Battle of Adrianople, they destroyed a Roman army and killed the Eastern Emperor himself. This wasn't an invasion from outside. It was an uprising from a population Rome itself had led in. Now layer on a second problem: money. Running an empire that stretched from Britain to Egypt required enormous cash. Soldiers needed pay. Grain needed to move to feed a city of over 1 million people. As the centuries wore on, emperors debased the currency to stretch the treasury further. Inflation crept in. Trust in Roman coinage eroded. The historian Brian Ward Perkins studied something unusual to prove this: ancient garbage, pottery shards, building materials. What he found was striking. In the decades after the Western collapse, everyday goods across Western Europe got cruder. Buildings got smaller. Trade routes that once moved goods across thousands of miles simply stopped functioning. The fall of Rome wasn't just political. It was an economic collapse that reshaped ordinary life for generations. Add a third problem: politics. The empire had split into 2 halves, East and West, each with its own emperor. The wealthier East increasingly looked after itself, while the West absorbed most of the pressure. Civil wars didn't help. Roman generals fought Roman generals for the throne almost as often as they fought outside threats. By 410 AD, a Gothic king named Alaric did something unthinkable a century earlier. He marched into the city of Rome and sacked it. Rome had not been captured by a foreign force in nearly 800 years. It wasn't quite the end. Rome staggered on for another 66 years, propped up by military strongmen, many from the very groups it once tried to keep out. By 476 AD, there was barely a throne left worth taking. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. The eastern half, centered in Constantinople, didn't fall. It kept going for another 1,000 years, until 1453. The people living there still called themselves Romans the entire time. So the empire didn't fall in one moment at all. One half collapsed under pressure it couldn't absorb. The other adapted and endured for a millennium longer. Which brings us to today. You live inside systems that feel permanent. Currencies, borders, supply chains bringing food from thousands of miles away. It's easy to assume they'll always work this way, the same way a Roman citizen in the year 300 assumed the empire would simply always be there. Rome fell because a functioning system met a set of pressures: migration, inflation, political fracture, all arriving at once, faster than the system could adapt. And somewhere out there, right now, a similar chain reaction may already be quietly underway. You just haven't heard the real story yet.